In a world where empires rose like storms and crushed everything in their path, one king chose to stand against the impossible. As the mighty Persian army marched toward Greece, fear spread across the land. But not in Sparta. There, 300 warriors prepared for a battle they knew they could not win. This is not just a story of war. It is a story of defiance, sacrifice, and the moment courage stood against an empire. In the year 480 BCE, the world trembled beneath the shadow of a rising empire. From the vast and unforgiving lands of Persia came an army unlike anything humanity had ever seen before. It stretched beyond the horizon, a living ocean of steel, flesh, and ambition. At its head stood a king who believed himself not merely a ruler, but a god among men. His name was Xerxes. For years he had expanded his empire without mercy. Kingdom after kingdom fell before him, their armies crushed, their cities burned, their people enslaved. His power seemed absolute, his will unstoppable. And now, his eyes turned toward the fractured lands of Greece, a collection of rival city-states divided by politics, pride, and ancient grudges. To Xerxes, Greece was not a challenge, it was inevitable. Fear spread quickly across the region. Messengers carried news of the approaching Persian army, describing numbers so vast they defied belief. Some spoke of hundreds of thousands. Others claimed millions. Whether truth or exaggeration, one fact remained undeniable. No Greek army alone could stand against such a force. Many cities considered surrender. Some had already begun to bow before the coming storm. Others argued endlessly, unable to agree on a unified defense. Greece stood at the brink of destruction, not only from the enemy outside, but from division within. But in Sparta, the response was different. Sparta was not like the other Greek cities. It did not value wealth, art, or philosophy above all else. It valued strength, discipline, order. From the moment Spartan boys could walk, they were trained for one purpose: to become warriors. Pain was not avoided, it was embraced. Fear was not hidden, it was conquered. And leading the society of warriors was King Leonidas. Leonidas was not a man of grand speeches or empty pride. He was calm, measured, and unshakable. He understood the reality of the situation better than anyone. He knew that Greece divided could not survive, and he knew that someone had to take a stand, not to win, but to buy time. Time for Greece to unite. Time for resistance to grow. Time for hope to survive. When news arrived of Xerxes' advance, Sparta faced a difficult obstacle. A sacred religious festival was underway, and according to their laws, the full Spartan army could not be mobilized until its conclusion. Tradition demanded obedience, but Leonidas understood something greater. If they waited, Greece would fall. So he made a decision that would define his legacy forever. He would go to war, with or without the full army. Leonidas selected 300 of Sparta's finest warriors. These men were not chosen randomly. Each one was a veteran. Each one had proven himself in battle. And most importantly, each one had a son, an heir to carry on his name, because Leonidas knew the truth. This mission was not about survival, it was about sacrifice. As the 300 Spartans marched north, their crimson cloaks flowing in the wind, they became a symbol long before the battle even began. Along the way, they were joined by soldiers from other Greek city-states, Thespians, Thebans, Corinthians, and more. Though their numbers grew into the thousands, they remained vastly outnumbered by the Persian forces. Still, they marched. Their destination was a narrow coastal pass known as Thermopylae, the Hot Gates. It was a place where geography itself could become a weapon. Towering cliffs rose on one side, the sea pressed tightly against the other. The path between them was so narrow that only a limited number of soldiers could fight at once. Here, the overwhelming size of the Persian army would be reduced. Here, discipline and strategy could stand against chaos and numbers. When the Greeks arrived, they prepared for war. Days later, the Persian army appeared. It was as massive as the rumors had claimed. The ground shook beneath their march. The sound of thousands upon thousands of footsteps echoed like thunder. Their banners filled the horizon. Their armor glimmered under the sun like a field of fire. Xerxes watched from afar, expecting immediate surrender. Instead, he saw something strange. The Greeks stood still, unmoving, unafraid. Curious, Xerxes sent a messenger to deliver his command. "Lay down your weapons, Ite," the messenger said, "and you will be spared." Leonidas listened calmly. Then he answered with words that would echo through history. "Come and take them." The battle began soon after. The first Persian wave advanced with confidence. They believed this would be easy, a simple matter of crushing a small, outnumbered force. They were wrong. The Spartans moved as one, their shields locked together, forming an unbreakable wall. Their spears extended outward like a forest of death. Every movement was precise, controlled, and deadly. When the Persians struck, they were met with resistance unlike anything they had ever faced. They fell and fell and fell again. Wave after wave crashed against the Spartan line, but it did not break. The narrow pass worked exactly as Leonidas had planned. The Persians could not use their numbers effectively. Only a few could engage at a time, and against Spartan warriors, that was not enough. Xerxes grew impatient. He sent more soldiers, more archers, more elite units. Even his most feared warriors, the Immortals, entered the battle. Still, the line held. For 2 days, the Greeks fought without rest. Blood soaked the ground beneath their feet. The air was filled with the sounds of steel clashing, men shouting, and bodies falling. Yet the Spartans did not retreat. They did not weaken. They did not break. But no plan is perfect. On the third night, betrayal changed everything. A Greek man named Ephialtes approached Xerxes with an offer: a secret path through the mountains, a hidden route that could be used to outflank the Greek defenders. Xerxes accepted. Under the cover of darkness, Persian forces moved silently through the mountains, guided by the traitor. By morning, the trap was complete. The Greeks were surrounded. When Leonidas learned what had happened, he understood immediately. There would be no victory here, only one final stand. He gathered the Greek forces and gave the order for most of them to retreat. Their survival was now more important than the battle itself. They would carry the story forward, they would continue the fight, but the Spartans remained. So did a small group of Thespians, choosing honor over life. Leonidas looked at his men one last time. There was no fear in their eyes, only purpose. They stepped forward together. The final battle began. This time, there was no defense, only attack. The Spartans charged into the Persian forces with everything they had left. Their spears broke, their shields shattered, their armor cracked under the weight of constant battle. Still they fought, with swords, with fists, with pure, unrelenting will. Leonidas fought at the front, refusing to fall back even as the enemy closed in from all sides. Around him, his warriors fell one by one, but not before taking countless enemies with them. The battlefield became chaos. Dust filled the air, blood covered the ground, and still, The Spartans advanced, until at last Leonidas fell, struck down in the midst of battle. But even in death he was not abandoned. His men fought fiercely over his body, determined to protect their king even in his final moments. The remaining Spartans made their last stand on a small hill, surrounded on all sides. There was no escape, no reinforcements, no hope of survival, only honor. The Persians, unwilling to risk further losses, raised their bows. Thousands of arrows filled the sky. The sun disappeared behind a storm of death. And then, silence. The Battle of Thermopylae was over. Xerxes had won the field, but he had not won the war. The story of Leonidas and his 300 warriors spread across Greece like wildfire. It became more than a battle. It became a symbol of resistance, of courage, of defiance against impossible odds. Inspired by their sacrifice, the Greek city-states began to unite. Rivalries were set aside. Armies were gathered. A new determination took hold. Months later, the Persian navy was defeated in the Battle of Salamis. A year after that, the Persian army suffered a crushing defeat at Plataea. The invasion of Greece had failed, and it all began with a single decision: to stand and fight. Today, Leonidas is remembered not as a king who lost a battle, but as a leader who changed the course of history. Because sometimes the greatest victories are not won by those who survive, but by those who refuse to surrender, even in the face of certain death. But the story did not end in silence. In the years that followed, travelers passed through the narrow pass of Thermopylae and spoke of what had happened there. They described the ground where the Spartans had stood, where blood had once soaked the earth, where men had faced death without hesitation. A monument was raised in their honor. It did not glorify victory. It honored sacrifice. Upon it were written words that would echo through generations. "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." These were not just words. They were a message, a reminder that freedom is never given. It is defended. The stand of Leonidas became legend, not because of the number of men who fought, but because of the spirit they carried into battle. They knew they would not return. They knew the outcome was inevitable. Yet they chose to fight anyway, not for glory, not for conquest, but for something greater, for their land, for their people, for the idea that no empire, no matter how vast, could break the will of those who refused to kneel. Xerxes, despite his victory at Thermopylae, would never fully understand what had happened there. To him, it was simply a battle won, a step forward in his campaign. But to the Greeks, it was the moment everything changed. Before Thermopylae, fear ruled. After Thermopylae, resistance was born. Farmers became soldiers. Rivals became allies. And Greece, once divided, began to stand as one. The courage of a few had awakened the strength of many, and that is why even centuries later the story is still told. Not because 300 men fought an empire, but because they proved that even the greatest power in the world can be challenged. That courage can stand where numbers fail, that a single moment of defiance can echo across eternity. Leonidas did not live to see the victory that followed, but he did not need to, because his stand ensured that victory would one day come, and in the end, that is what truly mattered. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more epic tales from history, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring these stories to life. See you in the next legend.